Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and today Apple released iOS 15.1.1 to the public. This is something we've been waiting for quite some time, and in a bit of a surprise, it's available to only specific devices. So for the first time in quite some time, this is available only to iPhone 12 and 13 series devices. So it's available to the public at the same time everywhere around the world, but you have to have a 12, 12 mini, 12 Pro, or 12 Pro Max, or iPhone 13 mini, 13, 13 Pro, or 13 Pro Max. It's not available to any other iPhones that support iOS 15 or any other iPads. It's only available to these specific iPhones. We haven't seen Apple do this for quite some time. Now, this update is a fairly small update. It came in at 362.3 megabytes. That's on my iPhone 12 Pro Max. But if you're on an older version, maybe you haven't even updated to iOS 15.1 yet, it's going to be a little bit larger. And so if you're looking for the update, the easy way to do that is go on your phone, go to Settings, go to General, then Software Update, and it should show up just like it did here. So you'll see it was 1.44 gigabytes on my iPhone 13 Pro Max. This particular iPhone is on an older version of iOS, 15.0.1. So you'll want to make sure that it's on the latest version to have the least amount of size for updating, but either way, it could be a smaller, large update for you. Now, as far as what's new, well, before we talk about that, the first thing is if you're on a beta, maybe you're on iOS 15.2 betas, you will not see this update. Because you're on a newer version, you won't see it even if you're on the supported devices that are getting this update. So just keep that in mind. Now let's take a look at the build number and talk about what's new. So we'll go to Settings, then we'll go to General, then About. You can see the build number is 19B81. And like I said, this is a bit odd because it's only for these specific devices. We haven't seen that in quite some time, if ever, with a major public release. However, this particular update fixes a specific problem for the iPhone 12 and 13, and that has to do with call quality or call drop performance specifically, as you can see here. It says it improves call drop performance on iPhone 12 and iPhone 13 models. And the thing that's very specific about the 12 and 13 series phones is they have Qualcomm modems in them instead of Intel modems. So with all of those issues with maybe switching between 4G, 5G, 5G UC, maybe millimeter wave and back to Wi-Fi and those things, hopefully those are resolved, and maybe it resolved more than just the call drop issue. However, because it's so specific, it makes sense that they didn't push it out to other devices if they're just fixing that one issue. So as far as what's in this particular update, that is the only thing they've mentioned. And when they push out one of these updates, they always update their security web page. So if we go to Safari, you can see this is the Apple Security Updates page. And if we scroll down, you'll see that they have iOS 15.1.1 listed there. And it says available for iPhone 12 and later. And this update has no published CVE entries. Now, that does not mean they haven't fixed something specific to this with security, but they haven't published it if they have. So there's nothing mentioned here as far as what could be in it specifically. But that doesn't mean they haven't pushed some sort of security update altogether. As far as bug fixes, well, again, I would expect it to fix things such as cellular connectivity. I don't know that for sure, as it takes a little time to use it, but cellular connectivity, I wouldn't expect any battery changes. Of course, it'll take a little while to use this and then see what it's like, but I wouldn't expect any battery updates, anything else, because it's fixing a very specific problem. Now, if it was causing battery drain specific to maybe the cellular antenna, then maybe we could see an improvement. But again, it will take a few days to know that for sure. And of course, this phone hasn't been my main phone. I've been using the betas. So this particular one, battery life for some on 15.1 has been pretty terrible. This phone has 100% battery capacity. And again, like I said, it hasn't been my main phone, so it's not going to show the true battery life of earlier builds. But quite a few people were having poor experiences on 15.1, so hopefully this is part of the problem and they resolved it with it. Now, as far as performance, again, I wouldn't expect anything different. Scrolling and everything else seems to be the same, but I did run a benchmark on this just to see if it was any different on the 12 Pro Max, since I have some benchmarks from earlier versions. So if we go into Geekbench, in Geekbench, you'll see it scored 1,596 for single core, 4,163 for multi-core. If we go to the history and take a look at the previous time when I ran it on October 1st here, that was with an earlier version, 15.0.1. We're actually a little bit above that as far as the overall scores. So that's a good sign. Even right after updating this phone, checking the Geekbench scores, they're a little bit higher. So that typically makes me think it's going to have a little bit better performance, as those numbers typically improve over the next few days. So that's it in this particular update. There's not a whole lot more to talk about. Now, I did talk the other day about some updates to AirPods. The other day, Apple also released updates for AirPods 3 and AirPods Pro. I made a separate video about that I made live earlier today. And of course, that'll be linked in the description. But if you want to know how to update your AirPods, or what's new in this, or what's new in the AirPods update, of course, that's linked in the description, and you can check that out on my channel. Now, other than that, I wouldn't expect iOS 15.1.1 to release to the public on any other devices. Now, it's possible they do that, but I think with iOS 15.2 coming up, us being in the betas, there was a beta yesterday, I think we'll have a couple more betas and then an early December release with 15.2 that will be available to everyone instead of just 12 and 13 series phones. Hopefully Apple doesn't do that again, because a lot of people get quite frustrated when they just push it out to some people, and that sort of fragments the versions that are available to people. So now on the 12 and 13, the latest version is iOS 15.1.1. On all other phones, it's 15.1. So I'm not really happy to see them do that. Hopefully they change that in the future. As far as if you should install this update, well, if you're on an iPhone 12 or 13, I definitely would install it to fix those problems with phone calls, and hopefully it resolves your issues. Now, if you found anything else in this update, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already, though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.